Hoots.
Okay,
Do you do
want me
roll-
to take roll
do you-
call?
Yeah, go ahead,
for
take roll call.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you,
background
Mom.
I'll
music.
take roll call now for the budget hearing.
I think that's my favorite background
Mr.
music.
Forlove,
Here.
Mr. Wolford, Mrs. Lyon,
Here.
Mr. Caver,
Here.
Mrs. DeBlock,
Here.
Mr. Helm,
Here.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Here.
You're a multitasker, aren't you?
I know. Okay. Over to you, Carl, for the budget hearing.
We will convene our official budget hearing for the tentative amended budget to adopt as our permanent budget and final budget this month. There were no changes from over the course of the last 30 days as it was on display, nor did anyone come to view it over the past 30 days while it was on display. As mentioned last month, the biggest change was moving the ESSER 3 money, which I'll talk about tonight in terms of where we're at with that. Moving a fair amount of it from the Ed Fund to the Capital Projects Fund to make sure that we can pay for the air conditioning and window projects. So that was the biggest change. Other than that, I would say about the budget is it did in the magic blue square, as I call it on the state form up here in the top right hand corner. It reads unbalanced budget, however a deficit reduction plan is not required at this time. It fits the bill for what the board wanted to do with paying down cash reserves while still spending responsibly. So we are well within anything. First of all, even if we didn't have big cash reserves, we are well within what I would consider big, but we're well within what the state would require before we would have to have a budget reduction plan. So, other than that, as I said, it's been sitting for 30 days. Yes, sir.
Is there any talk as far as once there's something about how many days worth of cash reserve you could actually have and then like setting a limit to that for the state?
There was talk of that. It has not went anywhere yet. So we're going to keep an eye on the state legislature because I think where most of the driving factor of that is coming from are some of the extremely well-off districts in the suburban collar counties wanting to put a daily limit on that, and it just simply doesn't translate to many of the downstate areas. So they seem to have much more stable income by and large, and we have relatively stable income because we have such a expansive farmland. But if farmland ever returns to a volatile state, that's a problem. And we're also not a tax cap district like most of those areas are.
How many days are we at as far as our reserves?
The auditors are actually here tomorrow.
Also,
So I'll
we'll
give you
know
up
after a while.
to date. We don't have a full year of cash flow, but we're pretty close to it. I mean, now we could get to a full year if we move between funds, yes.
Okay.
School year or calendar year?
Calendar year. So. Because, and the reason I say that like that is because obviously education service industry, the vast majority of your funds are paid out in salary, and our teachers are paid 26 times a year. So the number of people who aren't paid during the summertime is pretty minuscule. So I'm not an auditor, but that's how I work is a calendar year, not the school year.
Yeah.
So.
On the cover page, my name's spelled wrong. I don't know if it really matters. My name's spelled wrong.
Oh no, we'll fix it.
Okay.
Definitely.
That's okay. The computer auto-corrects it, and so it's closer than the computer usually gets it.
Yeah, do you ever fix mine on the website? Nudge, nudge. Okay.
While we're on the topic.
While we're on the topic of things.
No,
Branch
it's okay.
name on the
Doesn't matter.
website.
Like, Lucy's also not my legal name. Like Cleveland's spelled wrong, but does it need to have my legal name?
Oh, we should probably say Cassandra, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, right. Let me just fix it real quick, and then you're printing or signing.
All right, I'm gonna stick that next to you because I know you're more fastidious than I am. So, all right, more detail oriented.
Oh, okay.
Fastidious.
Yeah, but it's Excel, so it's not wise.
So, any other questions on the budget? And again, I'll touch on quite a bit of the financial outlook and
I can
summary
fix it for you.
tonight.
Doesn't matter until it's signed anyway.
No, it's Excel though, so it's not live. It's not like Google.
Yeah.
It's
It's
only
just a
fixed on
it's a
yours.
downloaded version on your.
Okay, I'm like, I'm in and
Yeah.
changing stuff. Let's change the budget, how much?
Stop.
Website?
You can give me a Twitch here, come on.
Oh, there.
Before Sue gets crazy, I'll entertain a motion
Your name on
to
the
approve the
website.
amended budget before Sue changes it and adjourn the budget hearing.
Sorry, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry. Motion was made by Mrs. DeBlock, second by Mr. Haber, to approve the amended budget and adjourn the budget hearing. Mrs. DeBlock.
Yes.
Mr. Haber.
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Helm.
Yes.
Mrs. Lyon.
Yes.
Mr. Forrest.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Don't say no changes.
Back over to roll call.
I'll take roll call for the regular meeting. Mr. Fuller Love.
Here.
Mr. Wolford. Mrs. Lyon.
Here.
Mr. Haber.
Here.
Mrs. DeBlock.
Here.
Mr. Helm.
Here.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Here.
Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adoption of the agenda. Dr. Johnson, is there any changes to the agenda?
There is one big change, unfortunately, speaking from the heart. There will be a change in section 8.01 as there is a board member resignation to consider. And if the board accepts that, to create an opening as per board policy 2:70. So that is the change.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was Mrs. Lyon?
Yes.
To adopt the agenda as amended. Mrs. Lyon.
Yes.
Mr. Helm.
Yes.
Mrs. DeBlock.
Yes.
Mr. Haber.
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller Love.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, members of the audience, I have none. Consent agenda items. Is there any questions in the consent agenda items? Is the Maddenville improvement plan from the scorecard, is that what that was? The Illinois scorecard?
Yes.
Like what was necessary?
Like we had to submit it because whatever, great.
To our absentee rate, correct?
In the test, there was a discrepancy on some of the testing in terms of, not discrepancy, there were some low performance issues on the testing, but we had some extremely high needs IEP students in there who would not be expected to perform well on a standardized test. However, those results still come.
Where's her sheet? She only tried there, so I was assuming.
Jeff did a really nice job of putting together that and communicating with the state to make sure that they were happy with everything.
Thank you.
Okay, any changes, any other questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion was made by Mr. Helm, seconded by Mrs. DeBlock, to approve the consent agenda items as presented. Mr. Helm.
Yes.
Mrs. DeBlock.
Yes.
Mr. Haber.
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mrs. Lyon.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller Love.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, over to you, Dr. Johnson, for the report of the superintendent.
This is the second reading of the board policies that we covered last month. The vast majority of them are simply updates and small verbiage changes. And there are no, from the board policy subcommittee, I received no worries about these or concerns, so I would recommend an adoption as the Press Plus recommends.
Any question on the policies? Once, twice. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the policies as presented.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
A motion was made by Mr. Kaler, seconded by Mrs. Lyon to approve the policies as presented. Mr. Kaler?
Yes.
Mrs. Lyon?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mrs. DeBlock?
Yes.
Mr. Hell?
Yes.
Mr. Fullerlund?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next, this was something that I had communicated regarding the surplus property. Basically, we received very low offers for any kind of a trade-in. What I'd initially hoped for was to be able to bundle those vehicles together and start looking for a new driver's ed car, that's coming down the road here, pardon the pun. We're gonna need that probably within the next 12 months. It's a older Chevy Impala, but it served us well, but it's getting to the end of its life, and we're starting to see the mechanics work on it a little more than they need to. So, believe it or not, sedans such as that are getting pretty hard to come by. So fiscally, in a fiscally responsible world, it might be good to look at something small like a small SUV like a Ford Escape. I know that history has shown us this year that their fleet pricing literally can't be beat. I even signed up when we got our last maintenance truck. I signed up with the fleet discount, if you will, identification number for Stellantis, so we could look at Dodge trucks. And I want to say Ford still beat them by like $4,000 on a truck. So that discount is so significant. So that's why I bring up the Ford Escape. Not that I'm a Ford fan by any means, just that it's pretty hard to beat those prices. So just to be ready for that, for the driver's ed car. But we will require public auction approval if we want to put those vehicles, and there's a whole room full of old filing cabinets, steel filing cabinets, some 2-drawer, some 3-drawer, some 4-drawer, to be, so we can have some more storage space too. Joel keeps begging me, will you please get rid of these things, or can we scrap them? I said, well, we'll see. So just need approval to be able to put those vehicles with the minimum bids. Communicated a little bit with John to get some feedback on those. Basically so that we're not giving these vehicles away. I mean, they're towards the end of their usefulness for us, but still, I don't think it'd be fiscally responsible to just give them away for the prices that they were willing to give us for trade-ins. So, put them online with a minimum bid and see what kind of interest we get.
Go get them, eBay.
I wish. It still has to be sealed, unfortunately.
Any other concerns?
How does that go out to everybody? I mean, as far as
I'm glad
notices
you
and
asked
stuff?
because we have Kayla here. No.
Okay.
So we'll reach out through social media and the website too.
Okay.
And I could even send a phone blast out
Oh, that's great.
if we're not seeing any interest, I'll send out the phone blast. So
How long do you usually put them on for, like 30 days or?
probably just because it's summertime and it's slower, give people an opportunity to come take a look at them. So.
How do they bid? They gotta mail in a bid or?
Yeah, it still has to be sealed, unfortunately. I looked and talked to all my contacts at the IASA to try to, how could we do like an eBay? So
Yeah,
get
and online.
buzz going or some count, no, it has to be sealed. So your only option to try to capture some revenue is a minimum bid. So, and, I mean, the minibus is fine. I mean, that's like a diesel box truck.
Yeah.
I mean, I know somebody could use it, that pickup. Even though it's, I think, a 96 or 97, I mean, it's a 3/4 ton, brand new tires, dual fuel tanks, snow plow,
It does have the plow and
use it.
stuff?
Yeah.
You're doing a good job selling it right now. Maybe you should be talking during some of the presentation. Hey, stand in front of it. Brand new tires.
You got a plaid suit, right?
Yeah, that's right. A little rock jockey. I'm so moved inside.
Don't.
No. Scare you?
Yep. Totally. No.
Love it.
Can't get out of my head now. Thanks, God. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the online public auction as presented.
So moved.
Second?
A motion was made by Mr. Helms, second by Mrs. DeBlock, to approve the online public auction as presented. Mr. Helms.
Yep.
Mrs. DeBlock.
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mrs. Lyon.
Yep.
Mr. Kaber.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next item, this is a requirement through the State Board of Education for our title grant document approval. Carrie Roberts, our Winola principal, has done a nice job in working with Lindsay, and Lindsay gives her a tremendous amount of support to submit basically the documents to the state. I don't want to guess how many changes we'll have to make. Sorry, Lindsay, just being honest. How many times the state will kick it back to us. Essentially what it is, it'll be a 3-step process. Once the board has approved it and we submit it, then it gets a first reading, and if there's no changes, it goes on to the second reading, and if there's no changes there, then we can actually get final approval. The problem is ISB has so many different readers. It used to be pretty consistent. We got one person as a consultant, but there's been a little bit of turnover, so we're not quite sure who's going to be looking at our grant applications. So this is Carrie's second time doing it, so hopefully she's, I know for a fact she's caught on to some of the little tricks to make sure that you're following all the rules. So, but 2 readings at the state, and then hopefully it gets approved.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When reading through it. I read the letter that Carrie wrote, the memo. But then when I was looking at I think it's the consolidated plan, it talks about having a credit recovery teacher paid partially through title funds. A question because of low SAT scores. How many students are scoring well below the state average, and then how many students are still credit deficient?
What page are you looking at?
I don't remember because I kept scrolling. Let me find it. It is page 7 at the top. It's not Title I funds, it's Title 4A funds.
That is the consolidated plan FY24.
Yeah,
Page 7.
yes. Title funds will be used to partially pay salary and benefits for a credit recovery teacher at the high school. SAT scores are below the state average in ELA and math. This will provide additional support for struggling students at the high school level. But I didn't think, because we never closed during COVID totally, that we had too many kids that were credit deficient when we brought on the credit recovery teacher. So I don't know how many students we still have that are credit deficient versus how many students are well below or below the state average in ELA and math.
This is anticipatory, to be honest with you, because we will have freshmen who will end up credit deficient, and if we don't start capturing it at that freshman level, that's where being at a high school,
Yeah.
that's where you lose them. Tim, you got anything to add?
I mean, we have those numbers, I don't have them with me right now, but I can certainly give them to you this week. And when you say credit deficient, I mean, it depends at what level are you credit deficient. Is it from being...
I suppose seniors wouldn't matter as much because you take your SATs as junior, right?
Correct, yeah.
So freshman, sophomore, and junior. Because if that's where we're putting if we want to increase SAT scores, is the best way to do it through credit recovery.
It's a part of it, but it's not the complete package, of course.
It,
I guess, just to be clear though, when we say credit deficient, in order to be promoted to the next grade level, is that?
however you determine
That's how we would-
who needs credit recovery.
Yeah, that's how we would look at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, I focus on the freshmen simply because
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to be credit deficient at the end of your freshman year.
Yeah, because they don't get it until
Get back
then.
on track.
They learn the hard way.
I had a conversation with an area superintendent, and they said just over a third of their freshmen failed at least one class and were looking for summer school if they wanted to be on track. So, I mean, that's scary, and we're not near that level.
Because frankly, we track that weekly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we've got current.
For some, I didn't think that it was that many, because when we started credit recovery, I remember being shocked by how small that number was.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say as a whole, I mean SAT scores as a whole in our nation are,
Yeah.
and then just talking to many parents, I mean, I myself was not happy with my daughters either, and it just how it is right now. I mean,
And this is the year we dig deep and into those scores, and because we can drill all the way down to the type of question and the area of focus, and so we do that every 2 to 3 years. This is our year to do that again, to see if there's a glaring area that we need to have a school-wide effort.
I mean, not to teach to the test, but I took ACTs, and I took an ACT early bird class. I have a brother that's in the same grade as me, my stepbrother, but he was in all advanced classes. He didn't take the class, and I outscored him mostly because I took a class that taught me how to take a test.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that?
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the school-wide waiver request and the consolidated application for title programs.
so
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion was made by Mrs. Lyon, seconded by Mr. Kaber, to accept the school-wide waiver requests and consolidated application for title programs. Mrs. Lyon,
yes.
Mr. Kaber,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Mrs. DeBlock,
Yes.
motion carried. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Love.
Yeah, sure.
Next item are per diem for, this is essentially focusing on postseason activities. Okay, so playoffs, football, sectionals, volleyball, all-state musicians, basically get a $5 per diem for meal money. I'm a big lad and I really enjoy eating, so this is near and dear to my heart, but you can't even roll into McDonald's and be satisfied for $5. So I would recommend doubling that to $10 a meal. So, and again, it is, I feel bad that Troy's not here in a selfish sense because I came with receipts.
Yeah.
So as an example, this year it cost the district $620. So if we doubled it this year, theoretically, it would cost just an extra $620. So the small expenditure, but I think huge.
I'd like to see that triple. I mean, we're sending a bunch of people to state.
I know, yes, thank you. That's awesome, yeah. Hopefully it, instead of, $1,200, it's $2,500
Yeah.
because we've got that many kids going to state, so. But again, I think it's a nice gesture for families
It's for the
because,
athletes. Oh, for the families, so it's for the athletes or the coaches?
athletes.
Oh, so when would they, I'm wrong, so like when they go to meals and.
Boys state track, girls state track, boys and girls, I think that's band, cross-country state meal, reimbursed cash for meal, junior high wrestling, junior high state track.
It has to be state.
State
Not
level,
regional.
yeah, sorry, yeah.
Okay, cause I'm like, the
Details.
girls never got any cut
I
back.
think it's any overnight.
Well, I think they would
Yeah.
get, the coach would probably take them as a team and then buy their meals. I don't know if that's how you do it, or.
They can use
They do it a
their,
little differently.
Okay, but it has to be state level, not
Yes.
just
I think
regional,
it's,
sectional.
and we can look at that, once Lisa gets her feet into it, we can look at that, because I'm used to operating on if it's an overnight trip.
Okay,
That's the rule. So if you're in a super sectional that's on the other side of the state and you're staying overnight,
Gotcha.
then the per diem kicks in. So
Okay.
that's probably something
Thank
we
you.
can look at. Because again, I mean, let's face it, I'm a parent, I've got 2 high schoolers until 2 weeks ago, I had 2 high schoolers under my roof. But he's still draining on the system. no, just kidding.
Yeah, your truck.
But if you have one less thing as a parent to worry about, because you know that coach is gonna give them a $10 bill, then you don't, okay, do you have cash, do you have this? It's
Right.
just one less thing the parent has to worry about, so
Well, I think it's a good idea, I just didn't know it existed.
I mean, I didn't know it existed either, but if we're increasing it, I don't know that $10 is enough. I mean, I just went to McDonald's tonight.
I almost asked.
And it was $13 for Grimace's birthday meal. I had a little sticker shock. The milkshake is good and I'm not gonna get another one. But
Just for one, for you, it was $13?
yes,
Holy
I got a Grimace's
Yeah.
birthday meal. I had a Big
I
Mac,
go-
French fries, my shake, and then I did get the $1.29 Coke because I wanted
A
caffeine.
6-inch wrap with a bag of chips and a pop at Subway's $13.
Yeah, the $5 footlong's not a thing anymore.
Well, I do get that one online, so I suppose that, right.
it's not that good of a sandwich.
$5.
So,
No, but really, I really
The
don't
dollar
think that like,
sandwiches are like $3 now.
yeah.
Just
So
saying.
I say, let's just keep it at 10 for now, and we see it, we can always
We doubled
adjust.
it.
We can always adjust mid-season, see where the bills come in, and
Yeah.
ask coaches how we're doing with it.
good.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the athletic per diem from $5 to $10 per meal as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second? That was an angry second.
Angry?
Second.
The motion was made by Mrs. Lyon, seconded by Mrs. DeBlock, to approve the athletic per diem from $5 to $10 per meal. Mrs. Lyon,
Yes.
Mrs. DeBlock,
I don't know, I am.
Mrs. Cleveland,
Yes.
Just the.
Mr. Kaber,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Fullerlove.
Thanks for thinking of me, yes.
The motion carries.
Alright, are you able to pull up?
Are you doing handbook or are you doing year in summary first?
See what happens, I get all excited and I get right past the school handbook. Ms. Cleveland and I met after I had an opportunity to chat with the principals and Mr. Johnson, the assistant principal, about potential handbook changes. I included it on there, it's the big changes are highlighted. Ms. Cleveland, what would you add about some of the things that we chatted about with the handbook?
We updated names from Alan to Carl and the special ed coordinator, that one got updated as well. Although I found another error on page 10. Unless you are Mr. Doctor. Are you Mr.
Mr.
Dr.
Doctor?
Carl? I don't, like, I'm
I've heard of the Reverend
I mean,
Doctor, but never.
I'm joking, but I'm also kind of like, I don't know, are you Mr. Dr. Carl?
What page?
10. Just above where it says the responsibilities of students.
And then I have a typo, so what you did when you did just earlier on page 5.
I know.
On the sex equity, on the 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraph, any student may filed, a sex equity may file, right? It's
Yeah.
not past tense.
I can't find Casey's.
It's right up above the responsibility of
Yeah, it's not in the
students.
box, it's just on the line.
Oh, there we go, yes, thank you. I was looking at the box.
I missed it.
Mr. Fuller, what was yours? I'm sorry.
Page 5, go to the sex equities line.
So we did try and correct some errors like that as well, but we didn't get them all. Um,
Maybe file, that's sex.
No, sure. May filed, file.
Backpacks and cell phones were both changes. As well as there's some credit changes coming up this year and
Those are
next.
interesting, I like the foreign language one, I appreciate that.
You can make your state. State requires it.
Teachers.
Details.
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 The book bags and lockers, I think, is going to be, while we'll have some growing pains, they're not the same lockers. They are actually what I would consider full-size lockers now. They're not the old school where there was the flip open that you hit your head on after you stuffed your coat and book bag into the 4-inch slot. So,
So next year we'll be back to where they have to put their backpacks away.
Yeah, they're not gonna carry it.
Or you can leave it at home or in the
I know, like
car.
my daughter
Yeah.
carried hers because her locker was way down in the band section and none of her classes were there.
Yeah.
So it took her too long to go all the way down there and come back, so she just carried everything.
She's gonna see the office for a locker change.
Yeah, I was gonna
It's,
say, some of the
it's
things.
areas by
Goes
the
by class.
seniors.
Yeah.
They're down there right now, so it's not, she can't even change the
Yeah, I was trying to-
Typically, if there's a doctor's situation or health situation.
It's
yeah.
just it's more of an inconvenience for a lot of kids.
Just fit it into, that's a good workout, right?
That's
Arm
right.
curls.
Who's walking around, huh? No, I mean, you can't.
She's up her ante on getting ag classes in then. She'll be fine.
Now, serious question, because, at Moline High School, the kids only use their lockers to put like their coats in and stuff because we don't have textbooks. We only have Chromebooks. So they really don't go to their lockers unless it's to get like their gym shirt and stuff.
I would envision that,
We
that's the
still
way it
have
was
textbooks.
prior to COVID, so
Yeah.
I would envision something similar to that. Because they obviously have to have their Chromebooks, and they
Yeah.
can stuff a lot of stuff in their Chromebooks.
I mean, like, are there still like math textbooks and things or no?
There's some
Some
textbooks,
words.
but not like when you and I went to
Yeah.
school where we checked out a book for the year. I don't know.
Okay.
It's more like a binder they all end up with.
Yeah.
Like hers, stash of papers.
Yeah.
Like a tracker keeper,
and-
a tracker keeper.
So-
Well, no.
So what's the purpose of not having the
File
book
things.
bags
Yeah, like the accordion.
Yeah, the accordion file.
or backpacks?
It was,
Okay.
it's, I mean, it is a huge safety concern for staff. What, you're limited in what you can carry in your arms with books versus what could be in a book bag. Rightfully so. I bet
That's what I figured.
Yes,
So
I-
when, going way back in the day, so we used to always be able to carry them because again, small lockers. Then you were there. Columbine happened and then gone. And then they were gone all the way up
To
until
COVID.
COVID when we couldn't use lockers and that's when we brought them back. But other than the last 3 years, not having book bags has been the norm at the high school.
The other thing that does minor, but kind of a safety hazard is they clog the classroom aisles. You know,
Yeah,
if
so
there
it's
was,
the extra hazard.
No, I agree with it.
It'll be something to groan about.
You know, another day, another teenagers.
Well, there was also a change in the cell phone policy as well.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that one.
All right, let me get to that. I was just on it and I came off it to fix typos.
Electronic devices 41.
Is what?
Page
Page
41.
41. All right,
So
I'm there.
I've heard from teachers and others, and I get it, it was one of the things we relaxed on during COVID. And again, I'm not speaking for all teachers, but I think it causes problems. I think having everyone, 41-minute, 42-minute class periods where they have access, lunch, I think you have literally electronic device that we use for our educational purposes. I don't see why a cell phone needs to be in the classroom. And yes, this one says they're banned, but a teacher will, if a teacher says it, let's be honest, we'll have some teachers who want to be the cool teacher, and it's not fair to the teachers that are trying to uphold the standard. Well, such and such allows us to have it.
Either the cool teacher or they don't want to put the effort into actually policing it.
Yes. I like the junior high one. I understand from a disciplinary standpoint that's going to be a tough haul, so we may have to ease our way back into it where it's not going to change overnight, because we don't need to have like 1,000 referrals, but you know, first quarter, like, hey, just reminders. Second quarter starts, you know, really kind of tighten up a little bit by the end of the year, and hopefully I can see it took about a 2-year process to get us back into where they're not in the classrooms.
I just think they're complete distractions in the classroom, my kids included. I mean, I get snaps in science lab with goggles on and I'm like, no, like, hey, thanks for thinking that you wanna text me with that because I gotta say hi to you today, but at the same time, put the phone away.
Yeah.
I don't know about easing back into it because then you have kids who think that they can control it, that now also are saying, well, but you allowed it yesterday. You allowed it on Friday, why not Monday? Well, because it's a new court. That doesn't mean anything to them. And I think you're prolonging the inevitable need to cut it off.
But I don't, well, so they're not gonna say, it's okay today, but it's not okay tomorrow. Just, I understand what you're saying, like, if every kid does it on Monday, the first day of school, and they all give the initial referral immediately.
They're all in line
Like,
to Alex's
verbal.
office and.
More like a verbal warning.
So the
Yeah, I
office
think
would
that's
be
what we
overwhelmed.
have. That, I don't want to speak for Tim, but I think that's where the easing in has to come. So if you look at this, if you look at the junior high cell phone policy, you can duplicate that at the high school. However, I would strongly recommend, as you're pulling back control, not setting this disciplinary set in stone, if you will. That's the part that could, I think, be flexible, where kids are used to carrying it because of COVID, let's face it, they've carried them, parents have become very used to being able to get a hold of their kids. But I think it's on the discipline end is where you can start to have the quote easing into it. So perhaps a couple of warnings until the door slams.
I think if you're waiting for not a lot of kids to not be compliant, you're gonna wait forever. Because they will, so, more power to them. They will organize and say, well, they're not gonna punish us if we all do it, so we're all gonna keep doing it.
There's also certain things that are not guaranteed by law. You're guaranteed an education by law, sorry, I'm not
Right.
trying to sound
Oh,
like
no.
a tough guy, but attendance at sporting events is not guaranteed by law.
Right,
It's not
that's what
part
I'm
of
saying,
compulsory
if you're waiting to
education.
punish kids for their cell phones until there's not 100 of them with their cell phone, there's a very good possibility that they will catch on, and then there will be 100 of them on their cell phone, because they know that nobody will do anything, because there's too many of them to punish.
This is one of those situations where you wanna leave yourself some wiggle room. I think that's what you guys are all saying. I mean, we could get to where we're saying there is gonna be a more staunch
Yeah,
definitive, but I think you wanna,
Yeah.
I agree with easing into this.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if parents have issues with it as well, because
There will
they're
be.
gonna say there's
Yeah.
no more safety issue, well, every teacher has.
Oh, I can guarantee you there's gonna be parents, what? My kid can't, I need to text my kid.
They have it because of work.
yeah, so you can text them at lunch.
Every 42 minutes you have access to it. That's more than what I have at work.
Assuming they're still gonna have it at lunchtime.
And every student has a school-sponsored email,
Yeah.
so.
They could also call the school and the
You
office.
know, like back in the day,
Tell them.
before we
Yeah.
had cell phones.
Yes.
We did that back then? Oh my gosh.
Alex,
I don't feel.
Alex Johnson had a great point. He said, number one, we have pretty high participation rates for our student body in extracurriculars. And he said, you're not gonna have a ton of problems with kids who are involved in extracurriculars. So I think we've got a core nucleus there that's going to wanna follow the rules, if nothing else, because they wanna be able to participate in their extracurriculars. So that's, you know, and again, that was Alex's, which I thought was a pretty good observation.
So do we need to tweak the wording before we approve this, or how would you?
It's almost contradictory, because it's like, no cell phones, but then the next, students must comply with staff directives, including.
I mean, you
It's
can,
almost what the junior high is.
I guess you can publicly declare what the intentions are, and then I can make the verbiage match that. And then so it would be.
Well, I think you have our intent.
Right.
I don't want to lock you, Tim, and Alex into, it must be, you understand the intent of the board and our left and right limits, and we trust you to develop something to that.
That we can review as we progress.
Yep. I don't think there's anything that says we have to.
Right.
I will obviously with Mr. Warrington, Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Emmendorfer, and Mrs. Mold about how to best get the information out there too. I mean, I think we need to, this is a major shift with lockers, bags, and phones. I think we need to be able to over-communicate that.
Yep,
So
there should be, yeah.
Mr. Worthington and I can build our fan club early, is what I'm saying.
I feel like you could like make some little cell phone holders that are magnetic to go in the lockers and market them. That could be like the retirement plan.
Good.
I'm gonna try this now.
Inside.
Inside of the lockers.
Inside.
Until they
You know,
slam it
there's
and
like
the magnet
cute
comes off.
There's like this magnetic
Crack the
mirror and
screen,
this
yeah.
shelf and like, you know, you can decorate your, there's a disco ball that's magnetic that you can get
They
at
don't,
Target.
because everybody uses their phone for a mirror.
Yeah.
Right, I just.
So we could like make a little thing to sell them to go in their locker for it.
Oh, it's like she next to me, I'm like, that's what they do. You sit there and go.
They do.
You know, it'll.
Oh, boy, you there.
Yes.
I'll allow them on vacation.
So, couple other ideas don't need to be fixed in this round, but as I look through them, when we're talking about the cheating policy, Tim, probably at some point, I'm sure through the principals and teachers, is how we start dealing with AI as that's coming out. And then,
I would think no phones is gonna help with the cheating.
what you can write your paper at home on the,
Right,
I mean,
right.
the
But I mean, for
Yeah.
like cheating on a test or things like that, when they're
Yeah.
doing it.
but literally AI can write your whole
I need a
paper.
research paper on the
Yep.
anatomy of a frog.
Yeah.
Is it cheating or is it using your resources?
It's cheating.
I don't know. I've seen great speeches on all kinds of random topics like pickles and chicken and all kinds of they're great.
Because the people aren't writing them.
I know, but they're magnificent.
Can you bring a step ladder to the high jump competition? No.
Is it the Paralympics or is it the Olympics?
I'm done. That was a golden nugget. Yeah, write
What'd you
that
say?
down. Can you bring a step ladder to a high jump competition?
Bring a step ladder to everything I do, 'cause I'm short.
Thank you, Reese. Thank you, Reese. Because my question was, what Olympics or Paralympics? Because I feel like Paralympics you might be able
It's
to.
like cheating, just like a step ladder and high jump
Oh.
would be cheating.
I don't understand.
Unless you're just
Okay.
using your
This is
tools
golden
wisely.
parallelism, I'm just
See,
saying.
that's what I think.
Yeah, there was a one earlier in your office, but I already forgot it.
Come back to it. Okay.
Ah.
So another one, so the school will respond to reports of bullying in the following manner. I don't know if this is the place to put it, and I think I've talked to Mendoza. I can't remember if I talked to you, Kayla, sorry. Page 40. I would like to have one of those things that we communicate on how we do things. I think there's this idea that we control private social media companies and that we can shut down pages right away, but there's a whole process which would love to have like a process map, or maybe not in here, but something we need to communicate, like, look, once we understand that this Officer Mendoza reports to the Sheriff's Department has to contact with the super user group. I have it for the Army when we have fake accounts, and then this is the process and the days that it could take, because it's not a flash to bang. So we get blasted, I mean you get blasted because you didn't do anything about the bullying account. And I think
Is it bullying or cyberbullying?
Cyberbullying.
cyberbullying.
So maybe it could be like an additional statement, like cyberbullying goes through.
Kayla and I have already
Legal
communicated
process.
too on doing the how-to video or the what do we do video.
Yeah.
So we can have different people chatting, including especially Officer Mendoza, on what has to happen, or not what has to happen, but more how do we do this? Because I think if people can actually see Mike talking in uniform, this is how we handle these things, I think that's really gonna help. Because again, you know, as Reese alluded to, your average parent who has an upset kid because they've been targeted by this, if it's up there for 15 minutes, it's like nobody's doing anything. And as a parent, I understand that and sympathize with it, but the reality of it is, if we just follow, sorry, I don't want to get on my anti-social media rant, but if we just followed age guidelines for social media, we would see 2/3 of the problems disappear in our schools. Just pure parental controls. You're not old enough, you don't get it. It would be stunning how much extra time we'd have, especially Rick.
I'm assuming, the problem I talked about it when we were discussing the handbook, there's some sort of digital media instruction, like, I can't think of the right words for it now.
Digital literacy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
It actually starts in elementary school.
Yeah.
Steve does a great job with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll interview Steve too.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
idea.
Nice.
I was trying to think of another angle, thank you.
'Cause you don't want
Like, your kids have been taught not to do this by more than just, like, you haven't taught your kids to do this, we've taught your kids not to do this.
Yep. So, and that was, I should say, always my first question was, why does your child have social media? Because they don't meet the age guidelines,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, there's a
So, all right.
Okay. So, I think the way we should word this is to approve the changes pending, approve the amended changes to the junior high, senior high handbook, knowing that you will work on the cell phone policy and the minor corrections that we pointed out. Okay, that's all I'll say. That will entertain a motion to approve the amended changes to the junior high, high school handbook for the 2023-2024 school year as presented.
Second.
So,
So set.
We got the angry seconds, a half a second.
So I've got Tabor and Lyon.
Obviously, we're during
Yeah.
summertime now.
A motion was made by Mr. Kaver, second by Mrs. Lyon. Wording, you want approve amended changes pending corrections?
Yeah, sure, that sounds good.
oh, I didn't know that was the wording, I would take mine back. No, I'm joking.
Okay. Mr. Kaver,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyon.
Yep.
Mrs. DeBlock.
Yes.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Helm.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller-Love.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And now that we've passed that, there's another correction, so. On, dang it, it took me to a different place. So there's a link to the meal card
Page.
stuff. I don't know because it took me somewhere else. Hold on, it's in the 40s. It was,
Under cafeteria,
yeah, and then
meal
there,
account guidelines.
yeah, and then if you click on that link, it links you to a document dated 2018. So it's not the handbook. It's just where the link takes
The
you.
link on page
Yeah.
43.
Yes.
All right, I got it, I'll fix it.
And then, sorry, the Chromebook policy says that it was updated.
What page is that?
It was while I was scrolling. And every time I go back, it starts me at the beginning. It's in the 42.
Just email it to me and I'll zap
Okay.
it when I get all of them tomorrow.
It's just titled.
All right, I am very happy to give you a brief year in review. I'd say this is kind of a summary of the past year. This is not going to be the full-blown presentation, which, with the board's permission, I'd like to start to explore having the August meeting at the high school so that we could do a state of the schools while everybody is in the mindset of new, fresh, coming back to school, and incorporate it with some of our goals that we want to see moving forward. So if everybody's okay with me starting to look at begging Tim for a spot to host it, we will do that, whether that's the auditorium, and Reese and I talked a little bit, and I agree with Reese, that you don't really want to be up on a stage. But we can move between locations if need be. So this could be like the first thing, a true state of the schools address with goals for the next coming year we could do that first.
I think what we do is set it up that way, adjourn, go to the library to finish the rest of the meeting, because visual guy, I don't like the idea of the board sitting up on the stage and, I don't like that.
Pay taxes.
Pay your taxes.
You sit in the back row.
Though you should have this done, Carl, because that was part of your interview, so.
But it was not, how should
You
I
make
say,
it
I got all the good stuff, but, you know, the goal setting. And plus,
That was year two. What would
It
your year
was.
two speech look like?
and it's, I got to thinking, nobody in June and July, it's just, I mean, let's face it, those are the months, you know, I want it when, I'm being selfish, I want an audience. How about that?
Be careful what you ask for, Carl.
Yeah.
No doubt on that.
Who brought the rotten tomatoes? All right. So, but just to go through a few things here tonight, and again, this is more aimed, I would say, at the board as opposed to the general public, because most of the things, this is going to be an overview of things that you're already familiar with. These are just the results from the past year. We will look at first the ESSER grants, because this, Lindsay and I were talking over the last week, this has been the single biggest change that we've had to worry about in school finance. It's been a massive influx of cash, yes, but on the other hand, it's been a massive influx of strings that are attached and how you can spend this money, how you have to account for the money, and then the rules that the auditors are also going to put on you. So there's a fair amount of demands that come with this increase in funds. So the first one is the ESSER 1 fund. This was awarded back in FY21, but it was rolled into an additional grant this past year. This one wasn't too bad because it was about $32,000 that we had left to expend, and that was relatively easy because it was some of the processes that had started again 2 years ago under Mr. Boucher, so this was pretty easy to wrap up. The next one that we started to work on heavily was ESSER 2. We had just over $104,000 to start. The good thing about these ESSER grants is, yes, there was a cutoff date, but they also allowed you to roll over the funds, so it wasn't just tied to the fiscal year, which helps when you're trying to expend the money, but it's an absolute nightmare when you're Lindsay and you're trying to keep track of things across the different years and the hoops that you had to jump through with ISB to make sure that you could roll those funds over, okay? For example, when I logged in, there were some expense reports from, not expense reports, basically grant progress reports from like FY21. And I'm like, what, you know, because it kept popping up the warning saying that I needed to do those. There was literally I had to go back in and check one little box from 2-3 years ago, and okay, now it's fine. Because that signified that it was just rolling over and those reports disappeared off of there. But I was a little worried when I saw that it was 2 years old. Well, that's just because that money was allowed to roll, okay? Of the original $183,000, we've spent about $84,000 of that, and the rest of it is going to be reimbursed to the district and spent, and we have until September 30th to spend all of the ESSER funds for 2, and those are on target to do that. The big one is, a little bit of what we used ESSER 2 for this year. We've covered the nurses' salaries for an additional year. We made sure that we had everything available that TransFinder had to offer for our software program, including the bus tracking systems. And we are also adding a couple of those to our quote spare buses to make sure that we can switch that. So if a kid has to ride a spare bus, it should just be a situation of assigning a driver to that particular, it's not a transponder, but that's what I'm going to call it because everybody knows what that is, okay? We will have our summer school salaries paid this year, and we're also in the process of purchasing 240 new student desks using ESSER 2 for the high school. So, hooray for Tim. All right.
Are you going to be the same ones that we've had for 25 years?
No, there's new, updated, nicer versions.
The camera, do those look like?
They look fancier than the traditional ones.
There.
Did you ever get your hair cut in, Lindsay, in the back?
Are they around the
Yeah.
huge?
They're bigger, yeah. That's the whole point. Is
Wow. In other words, in my other drawings, we
Those
had
desks
desks
and
that are way
things.
too big for my classroom. And so I just was, in other words, who all kind of decided on the desk, whereas just,
I came up with an idea and forwarded it to Carl and
just taking into account, because like I said,
But age appropriate and price point,
Yeah,
so.
what fits in the classroom versus,
I kind of enjoy visiting the high school because I can fit in one of those desks. If I
yeah,
roll into an elementary school, I'm gonna stand in the doorway.
yeah, just taking into account, because I can't fit my classroom anymore.
Age appropriate, yeah, definitely. And then finally, the big one, the ESSER 3. This was the application that was started by Alan. Lindsay and I finished it up in August. And it was like a tennis ball because it kept going to the state, coming back, going to the state, coming back. Because as we had different grant readers, if you will, they wanted different information. However, we finally, with great celebration, had everything approved. And we are laying that money out quickly. Okay, some of the things that were used, that ESSER 3 was used for, most of it was for HVAC replacements. We had new windows at 2 different schools. So when you get down there in the parentheses, the HVAC at Winola by itself is $423,000. Let's see, this almost $700,000 for HVAC replacements at Matherville. Those were the ones in the fall, but the units arrived a little bit late, so it was a pretty hot and sticky beginning of the year for Matherville. And then $213,000 for new windows at both Matherville and Sherrard grade. So it was nice energy and ventilation updates using those grant funds. And again, I'm a big fan of using the grant funds for one-time expenditures like this.
Do the windows open?
Yeah, they're,
Okay.
right, yeah.
We just know how that was at the high school.
They're not, yeah.
When the air went out.
Just like when all of the high school, those 70s buildings, oh, we've got air, what do we need this for? So, yeah, exactly. ESSER 3 funds were also used to complete the new Tier 3 room, remodel and pay the salary along with a portion of credit recovery. We also paid salaries of a guidance counselor for Matherville and the elementary schools. And then prior to the end of '23, we're on track to receive reimbursements of about $1.26 million. And then we will have the rest of it wrapped up probably 6-8 months. Okay, and a lot of that is because it's a reimbursement model. For example, I'll talk a little bit about Winola. That project should probably be done in about 2 weeks. And since it's a reimbursement model, you see the budget that you approved. When you get the audited paperwork this fall, it's going to look a little bit different simply because we will have well over $1 million coming back to us. Lindsay, you talked just briefly, did they give you a ballpark idea? She thought we'd have most of it by the end of the month.
Yep,
So,
by next Wednesday.
yeah, so the auditors are here tomorrow, they'll start to look at that.
Yay.
Don't know how much we'll be able to actually get on, I hope we can get it all, as much as possible on this year's budget, simply because it's a pain to roll it over to the next fiscal year. So, okay. So again, that budget is, even though it says unbalanced right now, it's gonna be a lot closer to balanced when this money starts rolling in. Okay. On to finance and budget. Overall, I think it's safe to say our financial position is very strong. I don't have any reason to believe that our financial score wouldn't be at least as good, if not better, than it was last year. So looking forward to what the audit actually finds. Our December levy, which this is something that not every district in the area can say, is our December levy reflected another drop in our tax rate. Okay, it went down by $0.01 this past year. A lot of districts in the area can't say that, and this is almost a decade-long trend for the district. The only thing that has changed that is the bonding capacity, and when the district has decided to borrow for big projects, that has adjusted. But if you look at the actual property tax levy outside of bonds, the board has done a phenomenal job of having that downward trend. Now, obviously, at some point in time, property values going up, tax rate coming down, somewhere that's going to have to meet and stop. I mean, just simple economics. not there yet, maybe it'll be this year, we'll see. But again, I think it's nice for the board to be able to brag that for the vast majority of the last decade, the actual property tax rates have come down. So, okay. Additionally, taking advantage of what's happening in the finance world with interest rates. While speaking from experience, somebody who was trying to build a house, it's going to be pretty difficult borrowing money when you see the rates that you're going to be paying compared to what they were a year ago. We're taking advantage of that on the back end. The money market account at Farmer State Bank of Western Illinois, we renegotiated so that follows what the Fed rates actually are. We're always going to be 100 basis points off of that. So for example, if the Fed rate is 4.75, we're getting 3.75 APR on our money that's invested there. Just to give you an example of that, back in August, we were getting it was locked in at about 0.25%. And now it's fluctuating with the market, so I want to say this month we're over 4%. Okay, so, and because those construction funds are sitting there, that's significant one-time income. Okay. And I hate to say it's set on cruise control, but it's now set to follow the market. It's not locked into the fixed rate.
Is that federally protected?
Yes.
All of it?
All of it.
Okay.
Yeah. The money market with Farmer State Bank, and then the CDs and investments with the liquid asset fund. So it's all protected through FDIC.
So there's no cap of $250,000 or anything like that?
They sell securities. The banks have to pledge assets to protect our CDs, to protect our investments. So every month we get a report from the bank saying how much they have pledged to our designated accounts, that if there was to be a run on the banks,
right,
that our money would still be protected.
Just because we're a school district? Okay.
You get to operate by a different set of rules.
Yeah.
So now the liquid asset fund does offer some things that are not FDIC insured, but they're insured, if you will, through pledges, but we've stayed away from those. So for example, right now our CDs, which are started under 5 million, are now over 5 million. Both of them, the break essentially started as a $2 million CD and a $3 million CD. They're floating right around 5% right now. Lindsay's advice was go with the shorter term so that you're not locked in if you need the cash flow, and then when a better rate comes along, which it's consistently been doing, you're not looking at, we have to leave that sit there for another 8 or 9 months. No, okay, suddenly in a month then you have a couple $1 million to be able to roll into a better CD. So about $300,000 so far in interest income since roughly Thanksgiving.
What was all that, like bank money for us, or some from our bond money that actually that will be going to pay apps for construction?
That $300,000 literally is just income that didn't exist.
No, I meant the 5 million.
Oh, the 5 million were the 3 million was initially a CD. The 2 million was ed funds that we took out and put into a CD, a new CD.
So none of that
But
was
it's
bond
not
money.
construction money.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we do anything with that construction money, or
Legally, the only way we can make money on it is
because it's a bond?
leave it in that money market.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, because if we could, that'd be nice if you could roll that.
Oh yeah.
5 million.
I thought I remember you saying there's
Yeah.
a cap on there. Like I can't remember what the percentage was, but 3% after like 2 years or something like that. So.
And it's not on here, but the timing of the bonding was phenomenal. So if you're looking at a school district right now that's borrowing money, they're on the back end of this. So you can imagine how that is, trying to borrow money to do this now in this market would be a lot tougher than what the board did 2 years ago. So congratulations, great timing.
How
Nice
long
job.
are interest rates trending to stay this way?
The Fed did not bump it up. The last time they were gonna bump it up 0.5%, and they went 1/4. And if they don't have to bump it up again, they're not going to, is what I've heard, what I've read. I don't know what I read, but as inflation is slowing, that's a good sign that the interest rates will stop going up.
Are we gonna look at then if the Fed ends up staying flat, you know, of going to something a little bit long-term? Because if we think that it's gonna, so at that point, we'll go something extended out.
It's full-blown nerd alert around here when we're expecting an announcement from the Fed. I'm just being honest. Lindsay and I are like, did you hear anything? Because that is exactly what we're thinking. Because if it's like, if the Fed says we're not gonna raise it again, boom, it's on the phone to the liquid asset fund where, okay, there's $2 million in the money market, she's got the red phone in there. But if there's $2 million in the money market that could be put in, ed funds that could be put into a CD, that's where it's gonna go. Because these others are short-term enough that they're gonna mature before we need the cash flow that we could take 2 or 2.5 million and put in there for even up to 24 months.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, how long you plan on going if you get to that point? 24 months.
Yeah.
Good.
And we get, probably every other day, we get those emails from the PMA for the liquid asset fund. So,
Cool.
when the interest rates were at a percent or under, it doesn't get your attention, but now it's like, did you get that email?
It's a great job by you guys, really.
Amazing.
Well, Lindsay's literally got the information at her fingertips when I say, okay, these rates come out, when does this mature?
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
Yeah.
and pretty soon we're gonna have to stop calling the 2 million or the 3 million because it's all compounding, so that helps.
Can't wait till it's 3 and 4 million.
Okay, finally, construction. The next thing, I was at a construction meeting today, so this is fresh on my mind. It's been extremely busy, as everyone knows. All the projects and processes that you guys approved are now starting to see completion. Matherville has their HVAC all completed. They've got nice new windows, and then again, there was a major roofing project at Matherville as well, and all of that has been completed. There's still some things that they're working on with bugs in the software to control Matherville. Essentially, there's, and some of you probably already know this, there's what's called an economizer, which means if the outside air is of the right temperature and can be pulled in as opposed to heating or cooling it, it does that. However, if there's a big enough discrepancy in the temperature of the outside air, these new units at Matherville want to heat it before it comes in, and so then immediately the room is like a blast furnace. So they're working with Ubiquity is the name of the software that they're working with to try to get that sorted out. But I've talked to Crawford a few times, and they're working with the company to try to get it sorted out. So the cooling isn't the big issue so much as it's the heat in the wintertime. Yep. Winola, very happy to say their HVAC project started June 1st. All the units were already available and in storage, so we didn't have to worry about that. And then the completion is scheduled for early July. So very much looking forward to Winola being done, almost as much as the teachers who are going to enjoy new air conditioning come the fall. High school, junior high school, this almost seems like ancient history, even though it's only been less than 6 months. Science rooms are amazing, beautiful, state of the art. The labs. The lockers and the flooring in the school have been, I don't know about you guys, but I've had a tremendous amount of comments from parents on those things about how good it looks, the major roofing projects. Speaking of that, that's probably the next thing that we're going to have to look at are any of the remaining roofs at the junior, senior high complex that are going to need, that's next on the radar, so to speak. Gym 2 looks incredible. And then, of course, our greenhouse. So, really have a lot at that campus to point to and have people walk around and be jealous, as Alan liked to say.
Could we tour that maybe in August?
Sure.
I mean, because I haven't seen the science rooms now.
Or even July. I
Or
forgot,
July.
yeah, when we went on our Carl's Magical Bus Ride
Yeah.
tour, and we had a mini bus.
Yeah.
Are we gonna be there though in August?
I'm adding minibus
I mean,
for
at the high
bingo
school,
game
yeah.
on
We're
May
gonna
10th.
be there, yeah, that's what I'm saying, August, because we're gonna be there
Yeah.
in August.
Yeah,
Sure.
just, we can get there like an hour early before the regular meeting,
I mean, like the greenhouse.
do a committee of the whole meeting of the buildings and grounds, and then just walk the terrain, see the new tier 3 room, because we haven't all
Yeah.
looked in that since that's been done. There's new tables and things in the library, which I don't think was there. I'm trying to think what else I'm missing.
There's gonna be cool new desks.
Yeah, new desks.
That's right.
New desks that Sue can try out.
And I hear old desks.
If they can
No,
deliver them,
really.
right?
Yeah.
That's because of this huge influx of money, that's literally created shortages of things like desks, because schools, by and large, have the same needs and
So
ideas.
do you have like a wottery for the desks? Like, who are the lucky choosers? Like the Hunger Games who got the...
Whoever follows the cell phone policy.
There you go. I like it.
Careful those rivets, they're gonna pinch you while you're on your phone.
But no, I mean, we'll be able to, there's some that are in good shape anyway, but there's some that are in drastic need. I mean, you walk in, it's clear who needs them.
Yeah.
I like your Hunger Games idea though, we did have in the gym, they had the bows with the
Yeah.
Nerf dart, or, well, that kinda got us in trouble, I guess.
I got us
Right.
so much trouble.
Maybe not.
And I had so many positive comments from the kids.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
absolutely loved it.
total aside though, so one of the questions that General Gillen hit me up is like, what are you doing for recruiting? And luckily Kayla's had like a whole bunch of videos and things like, here you go! And you know, like, they're not only out of the school, they're out there like all the time. So he thought the bow and arrow was pretty cool.
Then finally, Sherrard Grade School, new windows and roofing. They just were finishing up the roofing, I believe, today, and of course they'll come back when the addition's done. And then we have a little bit of a video to show you for the new addition.
Is that your drone?
No, this one was not, was this
Just
Brandon's?
Well, it's the drone from the school, I believe.
We bought a drone?
Years ago, at least a year or two ago, maybe?
How recent was that?
No,
That you shared?
Well, hadn't brought it in, and it was kind of new when he was leaving. I mean, it's short and sweet for social media, so it is posted on the Facebook page. Yep, so you can slow it down and look at it.
So maybe when that's done.
Now you're asking me to do a lot, Carl.
I know.
Sherrard.
Okay, and then I'll show you what's been done in the last 2 days. That's the crane that, we had to get a bigger crane, because we did the interior masonry wall. So the precast concrete was delayed, something about the bricks. I built a lot of friendships at the construction meeting today, as you can imagine.
What's the boom on that?
Yellow.
That's not yellow, that's black.
When day does the board get to come play with that?
I think so. This hooks on the belt loop and you can see the bungee jumping, yes.
You thought it was a
bigger one,
drone,
or
but
is
it
it
was
a
really
smaller
somebody.
Hey, in our defense, the iron worker, job site manager, is a former Sherrard wrestler. And I talked to him a few times, so I think we can do some fundraising bungee jumping, I'm just saying. But anyway, these interior walls, okay, because we had, so here's the roof, the front door would be somewhere over here, here's the gym, cafeteria. Essentially, because the precast panels that go here were so delayed, they went ahead and said, let's do the load-bearing masonry walls on the inside. So as a result, that crane couldn't then come in here and sit and just stack them along the edge and then back up and do the back edge. It has to be able to pick them up over everything. So there was a little bit extra cost because we had to have a crane that could pick them up and set them over everything. However, if you go over today, go ahead and pause. If you go over today, they had set all the panels along the existing school wall, and they started to make this corner. So I believe their goal is to set about 10 panels a day and be done by the 27th setting panels. Okay, and the last 2 days they have reached their 10 panels. And really all they're limited by is of course how fast they can set them, but how fast they can truck them in. Because one of the, I think they can only put one of those panels per truck, they're so heavy.
Okay.
So that you're somewhat limited by that. But again, if you go by, you'll now see that this picture, it looked like this 2 days ago. Now it doesn't. The walls are here. They've made this corner and they've made that back corner. And now they'll start going along the edge there. And ironically enough, as I was standing there watching them do the corner, one of my high school classmates came walking up. He was one of the crane crew. So he was explaining a lot more of the intricate details to me, which was pretty cool. So,
That's also done on the bingo card, one of my former students.
our classmates. He's old like me.
Okay.
So, but if you have the opportunity to drive by, you can get to.
Keep going.
You can probably, yeah, go ahead and say. You can get to the fence out here and see what's happening. So right here is where you'll see the walls that are going up, and then if you stop over there each morning or each evening, you're going to see massive changes over the next week because that's how quick those walls go up. Here's the steel that's being stored. These are the spans that go across the top there. You can definitely see the footprint of the new gym and the classrooms right here, restrooms. So very, very cool to see, very exciting, especially now that we're at the point where you haven't been able to see much changing. Now it's changing literally by the hour. So it's very cool, and Brendan did a great job with with all the shots. It makes it a lot easier to explain than just trying to describe.
Drawn on paper?
Yeah. Back when I had to.
Do we have a time-lapse camera set up yet?
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
Cool.
Casey's got a time-lapse camera
It's
set
on
up.
the, he said it was on the
Here's,
trailer.
this is the construction trailer.
2024.
So, fire station over here,
Yeah.
the main school parking lot. This is the construction trailer, so actually there's a gate right here that you can't get through. But this is a construction trailer. Right here on the corner of the construction trailer, Casey set up a time-lapse camera.
Never so cool.
What do we say, January 2025?
He's supposed to be done in time, fingers crossed, for the new semester.
Yeah,
This,
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
this
24.
Christmas.
24, okay.
Yeah, that's his 504 meeting, we discussed having.
Well, I was thinking
walk
Riker was
through.
gonna miss not being, have, but he'll get it by the.
So
Yeah.
we should tentatively schedule January's board meeting.
Yeah.
Brief plug for Hodge, our construction managers. They've done a phenomenal job. They run a tight ship. They do a good job with the meetings. They do a good job with the organization, taking an awful lot of work off my plate. And again, the number of Sherrard people, graduates, and still community members that are working on this is awesome. And then, as I mentioned, every time I show up, I see one of my former students there, so that's kind of neat too.
The other thing I noticed on the video is how clean the construction site is.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have seen a construction site that clean in a
That
long
shows
time
still-
or ever.
What was my house up here, Casey? Since you.
It was my mom that drove the kids by all the time. We'll have to judge Carl's next. No, it's just a really clean construction site. I mean, the concrete's not all cracked, like the new concrete for,
I hope not.
it looks nice. No, like the sidewalks and stuff. Oftentimes those get cracked because somebody drives over it with too big of a machine,
Gotcha.
or there's trash, from lunches blowing around and stuff. It just looks, it's nice.
While we've got this picture here, it's kind of off the subject, but we've talked about it before. Our neighbor, if you will, back here, okay, property owner, Dr. Swanson. I met with him, and this is actually our temporary construction road right here. This is all gonna go, okay? So instead of paying to haul that rock away or even to store it at the high school, we're just going to have them move it over. So have them in Centennial and Miller.
The baseball field.
Because
Baseball
that,
fields have-
we paid for that rock, so
Down there.
now it's our problem to deal with.
Yeah.
Just being able to put it here, we're gonna put a little bit of a chain across here, so if somebody needs to move the chain to come back and stock the concession stand, we're just gonna try to
We good neighbors.
send the message to the general public, this is not our property, this is Dr. Swanson's property, so please respect it. So, some signage, some parking lot stripes when we're done, and then a chain across there to make sure that it's not readily available for everybody to use. So. All right. And curriculum. I'm gonna give all the credit for for the advancements thus far that we worried about. To Tim and Steve. Steve's new, so I'm gonna talk about what Steve's been doing. I can't tell you how much of a difference that's made in terms of what I've had to worry about with curriculum. As time goes along, this is going to take the curriculum issue off the plate of the principals. Jeff, Carrie, Casey, they're not gonna have to worry about how do we get together, who's gonna select what. Steve's gonna be able to do those things. So literally the principals are going to be given, here's a couple of options rather than starting from square one. So it's gonna be nice, and it's going to result in an awful lot of growth. Some of the things that Steve's done, specifically, he's met with all the grade level teams regarding the scope and sequence. Steve has all of those things accessible if anybody ever wants to see those things. For each grade level. We're going to have a social emotional learning curriculum, Zoom, will be added for next school year, which is a curriculum for K-6, and it's essentially the things that, for example, the digital literacy and citizenship piece is included in there. So it's a how to be a good person, if you will, without adding a whole lot of extra to the plates of the teachers, if you will. So I don't know what you guys do, but
I don't know.
there's always, this is another one of those things, it's a mandate that the state expects us to have, but I'm very reluctant to just throw it on the plates of the teachers. So if we can have a program that'll handle it, that's gonna be awesome, okay? Let's see, finally map testing. Steve and I have talked an awful lot about map testing and how we're gonna use it. It's a big expenditure for the district, and I think that it's something that we can start putting a lot more emphasis on in terms of how teachers are able to use it and take more off of their plate in terms of planning and what kids need individually. Because let's face it, every kid is going to be a little bit different, and it would be nice to be able to give every kid something a little bit different. Be honest with ourselves, that's just not within the capabilities of a human teacher. Okay, so if we can have some map data that's going to tell us, and we can start to group kids, that's gonna help, so that the teacher only has to go 3 different directions instead of 23 different directions. Okay. Talking about Map Accelerator, this again follows in once teachers are a little familiar and know how to use the scores, to give each student a little bit more of a personalized learning path. And as we dig into the map testing a little bit more and put a few more targets in there, if you will, we're going to be able to follow along much better with what kids are learning and how they're performing. Okay, so just to give you an example, we always see what the headlines say with reading and math scores. Okay, well, there's about 10 subgroups of each of those levels and what kind of skills go into a good math score or a good reading score. You can't just look at a teacher and say your reading scores aren't very good. Okay, thanks, Captain Obvious, that really doesn't help. If you can dig into math scores and say 2/3 of your kids are horrible at vocabulary. Oh, well that's kind of a smart goal. All right, let's work on vocabulary. Reading scores are going to come up. Okay, you've got almost 3/4 of your kids that have no fluency with reading. They can't recognize words. All right, well then let's work on some fluency, and then suddenly, wow, your test scores are going to improve. And I hate to say your test scores are going to improve, but that's what we see. But in reality, kids are better readers when you do those things. So hopefully that makes sense. All teachers will be trained with that program by the time the year starts. Steve just sent out a request to the principals for some time at the beginning of the year to make sure that he can go through this with each building. So looking forward to that. This coming year, it's going to be more about K-6 content area in ELA. When they say Tier 1, that's all kids in the classroom. Right? 24-25 school year, we're going to focus on math, and obviously the year after, we'll just be able to polish some things up. So again, Steve, can't give him enough credit. He's done a phenomenal job in one semester. He's really jumped in and done some great things. Okay. Finally, fleet updates. As you know, the board's graciously approved. We've got two new main buses, which is kind of continuing on with what the process has been with Alan's tradition, if you will, of making sure we get 2 new ones a year and rotating the 2 worst buses out of the fleet. Also a new lift bus, so that's going to help. We had the new minibus, Bingo Square, and we also had 2 new maintenance or plow pickup trucks, which is good. We have a new mower. Normally you laugh and say a new mower, but when you're talking about campuses the size of what we have and you get a new mower, that's in excess of $30,000. Okay, so, but again, we got the state bid price on that mower. So I want to say forgive me, it's been a couple months, or been a month, but for like $44,000 mower, we had almost $10,000 off of that because of the state bid price. I mean, it's crazy. So, good for us, obviously. And most of that money has come because of the corporate personal property replacement tax increase. However, that number is going to go down. This year, I think it was in excess of $550,000. It's going to be far less than that next year, but they can't exactly tell us what. They're just telling us to prepare for much less. So while we have it, again, really one-time expenditures is the way to go. Would it be nice to hire a bunch of people if we could to do different things? Of course it would, but those recurring costs on one-time money, bad idea. And finally, to end with some things that we need to look for. What are some of the quote warning lights on the dash that we need to look at? Number 1, in my mind, are vacancies. I hesitate to call it a teacher shortage because I think we have a lot of good teachers in the world, but there's an awful lot of people who are unwilling to deal with some of the things that come with education. So I have nothing but respect for teachers, and we need to continue to find ways to get people more involved in education. And I think this district does a very good job of it. However, given our positioning with the Quad Cities, we're always going to be in danger of losing people to higher salaries, and that's been that way forever. But definitely something to worry about. Scheduling and transportation. This almost goes hand in hand with number 1. As positions are more difficult to fill, including bus drivers, we're going to have to look for efficiencies that might not exist with our scheduling and our transportation routes. Whether those are little tweaks to make sure that we have enough bus drivers, or whether that's big schedule changes to not just course offerings based on what we can staff, but also what does our district schedule look like on a daily basis.
Are you talking big things like universal start times, or what are you thinking?
Honestly, at the beginning of the year with some of our driver situations, I was thinking that. And it hasn't went completely away as I talked to other districts that do have a variety of kids, a variety of ages on the bus as opposed to going
We're like the
to
only
2
district
routes.
I know.
Yeah.
Dave always used to have that, and now it's like going in town to go get your eggs and milk, and you're coming home, and going back in town to get your meat.
Yeah, and it's not efficient by any means. So far, we've had the staffing to make it work, but I can't imagine that's gonna last.
That's right.
So, just something to be prepared for.
If we ever go that route, what I would recommend is that needs to be communicated for like a whole year. So like whatever we set, so like, hey, a 2025, 2026 school year, so people have the time to make the changes to the daycare. There's so many small little things that will impact scheduling. Whatever we do, we gotta have a good year to let parents understand the nuances that go along with that.
Definitely.
That can't be a June meeting and, hey, we're changing it this summer kind of thing.
The next item, energy efficiencies. I put the wind turbine, ironically enough, even though I did this probably 2 weeks ago, they upped their schedule. They weren't supposed to be out to fix it until next week. And lo and behold, they went out and they found the hose that was leaking, that was letting the hydraulic fluid go. Went and had the hose made, and we're back today and filled it with oil, and it's now making power. So,
For like 2 days.
yeah, we will see. However, I was told that particular fluid, they used that hydraulic fluid, they used the rest of what they had in the shop because nothing uses that anymore. So from here on out, we're gonna have to buy a 55-gallon drum and figure out
I saw.
where to keep that
Remember
on.
how I said I just needed an oxyacetylene torch? I saw a video where they just pulled it over with a big excavator. I
Damn,
didn't
it's coming with these ideas.
Well, and I went one step when I was, Jacob McNamara is our contact, good guy, for the turbine maintenance, and I reached out to him and said, look, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do want the name of somebody who can tell me, can you just pluck that old generator off there and put a new one on? Because if we've got the infrastructure of the cabling and the post, if you will, that's gotta be way less expensive than starting over. So if we have that, and he might put a price tag on it that's astronomical, or they might say that's not feasible. I don't know, I just think it's a valid question.
I can make more money on the YouTube videos than me pulling it over with an
I
excavator.
feel like the fire department could use it for training for something.
It is certainly slippery in there, everything's covered
Don't
in
do that
hydraulic
anytime,
oil. So,
Do you keep like a spreadsheet of how much we're making off of that or reducing of, you know?
Alan had that, but since it hasn't been running since I've been here, it's been. Alan loved that. I mean, he had a little bit of, he had a spreadsheet, he had electrical bills and everything, and I will tell you from what I've researched, we had a former school board member stop in and had an idea about what to do with it and where to go, but, and it was all news to me, so I dug into it a little bit. I don't think that thing ever made near of what it was promised as far as power.
Really?
And mainly because where it sits is not, if those energy corporations were looking for a place to put 25 of those windmills, they wouldn't put them there. So that, at least that's what I ascertained reading through the studies of how does the wind blow.
So cell phone and internet companies will pay a lot of money to farmers to put towers up for them to mount like dishes too. Can we mount something on
If
there?
they have a good signal, then they won't put it in their lockers.
Well, we're not gonna get passwords.
I'm not trying to speed up their day.
No, but really, I mean, like, can we change its purpose and mount something else to it that would produce an income? If we can't replace the turbine.
Really is, honestly.
I think we make it a STEM project for some of these high school kids. I'm not really joking. We want them to be creative, innovative thinkers.
Yeah.
Although our staff at the
Fix it.
junior, senior high school will be disappointed if it goes away, because they love sending kids out there to turn it on and off with the remote.
Really?
They do.
We have a fake
Heard that?
remote, yeah, we got a
That's
fake.
terrible.
Oh.
I thought everybody knew that.
No.
Well, God, now we got it.
Like, hey, can you go do me a favor?
I cannot speak to that, I know nothing. Just
Maybe I wasn't supposed to say that. I was.
That's funny.
Next thing you know, you're gonna be sending kids up to the second floor to look for the English language or something.
It's a big remote though, I mean, it's about that big.
Where's it from?
I can't answer.
Does it take
No, I don't know, I can't answer because I don't know.
It's like a switchboard from.
Maybe it will be available in
I'll-
August when we have our meeting.
I'll have to dig it out.
That's,
That is a riot.
If your daughter's not.
So much tonight, guys, it's been so informative,
I know, way beyond the scope. There's the
Please do it,
intent,
Caitlin.
and then there's.
I should have said, that information does not leave this room.
Yes.
You're gonna get yourself in trouble, man.
Please do it.
You're so gonna get yourself in
Now I
trouble.
found a way to it's like monetize this. As parents, can we like pay $5 to have our kids sent out there with the remote? Like on their birthday,
That'd be a good
right?
social
It'd be
media
a little
Blueberry
video.
video.
Yes.
That would be hilarious.
That'd be hilarious for
TikTok.
Sherrard practical jokes.
Yeah.
What does that open?
I know.
Look what you started, Dan.
Okay,
Sit on top of it, Carl.
energy efficiencies, I'm kind of I know we talked earlier in the year a little bit about solar. We've kind of got, we went through the process of what would it cost for a not-for-profit to come in, the Future Green is what it was going by, to see. So we've got the cost projections of what they say solar would do. I'm not opposed to waiting a little while to see how it pans out so that we can talk to some school districts that have actually done it. Yeah, I know some people like to brag that they're an early implementer. I don't have a problem with this, second wave so that you can have version.
Because that worked so good the first time with the windmill.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But,
So,
and for that, you would want a good record of what your bills have been, what your kilowatt hour per hour cost was and everything. So, because a lot for the solar, they're actually, you're getting charged more because as the time goes on, because they're saying your rates go up normally. But from what I've seen and what I actually looked on yours, some commercial rates have not gone up in like the past 10 years. But their spreadsheet is showing it going up to where they're charging you more. So as you go on, you may start out making a little bit more, but if they end up charging you more as you go. But
Well, with our new HVAC units, will our rates go up or down? Because we haven't had air conditioning in all of our buildings, but they're newer and ideally better, so then will that even itself out?
If there was
Well,
nothing, then you're not,
Well, no, but if we're more efficiently heating,
Not functioning.
No, it's true.
Yeah,
it's been there, but it's just now more efficient, so it should be down. Yeah, for sure, especially when all up,
yeah.
so that should help a lot.
We've had all the buildings air conditioned since 2005, 6, whenever we went to the all-year school year.
Yeah. Well, and I've said this before, the turbine was a selling point for us to move into Sherrard area. Because
really?
it was. It was one, we knew we wanted to stay around here, but it's like to see a school district way back 10 years ago,
Yeah. It is kind of a good thing, and you don't realize it's not.
Were you getting hypnotized while it was going?
She was like, ooh.
I just saw, you drive by and it's like, oh my gosh, they got a turbine, it's like, that's cool. And of course, when I got on the board, I'm like, oh my gosh, we got a turbine.
People outside of this room don't know that it doesn't work most of the
No,
time.
when you just drive by, it's just
They just think we have
a
one
focal
now.
point.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's subliminal messaging and it says move to Sherrard. Is it going to
Yeah, I just say, it was just, we didn't know much about the
Sewer and shiny
area.
things.
And then it was just like, oh, well, nice school, nice, progressive.
So as I get some information on the, turbine, I'll obviously share it, just so that we have
All
options.
joking aside, the direct drive ones like are out in Geneseo, those I guess are a lot less maintenance and, so your idea of I guess that would be an idea to look into putting a different type of mechanism up on top of what we have there.
You could probably put bigger blades on there, because the average height.
See, now, that was in that report. At
The blades are shorter than.
At the 11th hour of approving that and buying that, they downsized the blade and this way, I
So
wasn't
you were on the
involved.
board when it was.
I was not on the board. Do you remember what I'm talking about though? Because they.
No, it's the story I heard is this was like a brand new company getting into the business of this. And then last minute,
Yep.
to save some money a little bit, the blade was significantly shorted,
33% or something like that, I think.
which drastically reduced the energy efficiency of.
And the payoff.
Yeah.
So we're gonna spend the money putting this up. Now we want to save money by making the blade shorter, so we don't. Yeah.
And your return on investment, it kind of, the way it shipped it out was not the greatest. And that wasn't computed and conveyed very well, I think, is what I heard, so.
Well, the good news is we wouldn't do anything for a while because of number 4, so while we're reaping the benefits of the construction funds that are sitting there, we are going to have to carefully watch interest rates in the future when we need to do the roofing projects at the junior, senior high school to finish up. Because right now, obviously, if we're making that kind of money on interest rates, we don't wanna be paying that on bonds, so. yeah. And then finally, levy rates, as I mentioned, as expenses are going up, or I shouldn't say that, as property values are going up and the levy rates coming down, at some point, they're gonna meet in the middle, and we're gonna have to have a stable tax levy, if you will. So I don't know if that'll be in December of this year, if it'll be in December of next year, but I would say in the near future, that's something we'll have to look at.
We've been on a steady downward track for good.
And we've had this talk that we don't, I know like
We
last
don't wanna
time
bottom
we lowered,
out.
we didn't wanna lower it too much, because then the following year, what if it came back up, you know?
Yep.
It's like we knew this was.
I think we've been prudent with making sure we're still not going, if it's gonna be a huge rise because our EAV's gone up, we can just about it,
Yeah.
so.
Because it ultimately comes down to the bottom line where you can, well, we lowered your rate, yeah, but the bill went up, so that's what homeowners look at. So.
Yeah, for us in Rock Island County, it does no good.
Right.
We drop ours all over the line and the county jacks them way up.
Oh, they're terrible.
Take that.
I don't know what that's this year.
All right, and then finally, I have to part with a beach picture just in case, so.
Did you take it?
What's that?
Did you
No,
get to take that beach
no,
picture?
that's where we're gonna be in 2 weeks, so.
Nice.
Good.
On a stranded island?
I
Yeah,
know.
that's supposed to be that's like 5 miles offshore,
Really?
No
Yeah.
submarines, Clark.
so.
Yeah, no submarines.
I could probably walk, I don't wanna walk through water that far, but
5
it's
miles
not very
offshore?
deep.
Low tide, so don't walk out there.
Even at high tide, it's like 10 feet deep.
Where is that? Or where are you?
Off of Eleuthera in the Bahamas, so. Never been there,
Very tiny.
we're just gonna see what happens. And the whole island's like 110 miles long and at some spots like 30 feet wide, so.
Really?
Yeah, you can't get lost really, so.
News report.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Like I said, in August, we will do talk a little bit more about the student aspects and then obviously some goals for the coming year. Okay.
Okay, fee schedule.
Yes, did a little bit of research. We talked last month about making sure that this was on the agenda this month to discuss again, to see if we can come up with a graduated fee schedule. Because as we know, if a student is free and reduced lunch, they don't pay fees, but that's where it ends. So if you're free and reduced, you don't pay fees, but if you're not free and reduced lunch, you pay full fees. Now, the catch is anymore, almost 99% of our free and reduced lunch kids are through direct certification. So we get from Springfield, the Department of Public Aid, we get a report with a parent's name and then their dependents underneath of it. So literally, people no longer, if they qualify for free and reduced lunch, by and large, they do not have to fill out any forms. That comes direct certification from the state through Medicare, Medicaid, and any other type of public aid. So very few people are actually filling out paperwork to get free or reduced lunches. Now, we can publicize, if you will, that if somebody wants to see if they qualify, we still have the paper forms and the process to go through, just like pre-COVID, okay? To give you an idea of the number of, now these are only reduced lunch students. Okay? Matherville had 191 kids. They had 3 students with reduced lunches. Sherrard had 241. They had 4 kids with reduced lunches. Winola was 216, and there were 3 students with reduced. The junior high was 216 also, with 2 students on reduced lunches. And then at the high school was 454 with 4 students that were reduced lunches, not free. So you basically have, 16 kids in the district who qualified for reduced fee or reduced lunch prices.
So if they get a reduced lunch price, do they get free registration as well?
No, No, it's
Because earlier
either-
you had said if they
It's
are free
free.
or reduced lunch, that they got free registration. So if they get free lunch,
Free
it's
lunch.
free registration,
Fees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
registration fees.
No, he only said you had,
It's
I
all
recall
about-
him only saying if you had free lunches, the reduced piece was not, did not
Right.
qualify.
right, we have nothing in our stuff about that.
Yeah. No, just when you introduced it, that's why I was confused.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So, ultimately, I mean, if it's the board's will to do something simple, if a student qualifies for reduced lunch, then they pay at half-price fees. You know, I'm myself, Lindsay, Becky, the principals, the secretaries, we can make happen anything that the board wants to see happen. I'm not concerned, you know, we'll do whatever needs to be done there. But I just wanted to, you know, bring it forward that it's a very small amount of students who qualify for that. Perhaps it could be, perhaps we would have more who qualified for reduced lunches also, if people actually did the paperwork as opposed to just the direct certification. Because there are families out there who would likely qualify for reduced fees, but there's no other kind of state aid involved, so that we don't get their names from the state. They're existing, if you will, because they no longer fill out the paper forms. I will tell you that when there is a lunch balance issue, the principals are very good about making sure that the parents know, asking, if you would like free or reduced lunch forms, please let me know and we'll get them to you.
Even making public or having a link to it, even the income eligibility guidelines. I mean, I just looked it up. There's a nice one pager that comes out. I mean, just knowing what the income guidelines are. I mean, like a family of 3 for reduced lunch is $46,000 a year.
So again, whatever the will of the board is in terms of, if you'd like to see a reduced fee schedule that's relatively simple to compute on something like that.
If they're already getting reduced lunch and everything, I don't see a problem with, taking the down 50% or something for, at that threshold and everything. Or if they're already meeting that anyway. Yeah.
Was that a motion?
I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't, we didn't have this one up as, we didn't have this one up here, for vote. Yeah. Get us maybe a
This is
final-
just discussion then?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe get us a final proposal, maybe 2 different courses of action. Basically, almost like kind of like the calendar that we can vote on.
Hey, speaking of the calendar, on our school website, there's like senior picture day, Idaho picture day. It's not listed when the first day of school is.
Yeah.
Well, you're taking care of your last name too. Okay.
Only one.
So you said for the first day of school, correct?
Yes, like there's no like school starts, first day
Yeah.
of attendance.
It's kind of buried in there. We should go when they have school pictures and do it.
Oh,
Idea, Becky. So we can have uniform pictures for the board. When they have school pictures, can we get our headshots done?
Yeah.
Mine's in the backyard.
I thought you
I mean, so-
wanted
I thought you went
uniform.
back ahead.
No,
I
we
took
don't.
that one down, so it was like.
So when they do that, you want me just to give you all the dates for that, so you can schedule to get pictures taken?
Yeah, because we could go to any building on any day.
I gotta schedule a haircut.
Hey, Tim wants us to wear
Do
tacky
you,
masks.
No, wait, can we find out like where we are in order so that, if we like want to look down versus below us? Listen, I'm still married on the website because I've never changed it, so.
Yeah, the first day is August 8th, is that correct?
Is it?
Is that on the?
I thought it was the week after that.
It's a Wednesday.
I know, I
You
know.
know what it's that week.
No, it's that
It's that week.
Is that a Tuesday?
I
I think it's a
really late,
Wednesday,
so
so
kids have,
it'll give
because
me like
teachers start on Monday.
3 weeks
There's
without
2
my
days
kids.
of
John's a picture,
think
Dan's
it's
a picture
nice.
of a picture.
I think it's 9,
It,
10.
is
Nine.
John
I think it's 9,
the
yeah.
bush picture?
That's when we took the weird one out there.
Wednesday's night.
I am obsessed.
Troy had a
with
picture
I
like
Kim
10
likes
years
that
ago or
stuff
15
too.
years ago.
Oh, yeah,
Like
well,
the ID shows and investigative shows.
That was 7 years ago.
It drives me crazy that my kids are old now, they stay out, and I'm like, I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever
I
you want.
can't sleep
Okay.
there, and it would go away.
Okay.
An hour, people, shoot.
Moving on to our amended portion, so 8.01, we need to vote to accept Mr. Wolfer's resignation and move forward with posting the vacancy.
We have 60 days to fill it.
60 days and Carl.
60 days, but Jacob from the ROE, Tammy Muirhoff, our regional superintendent, was out of town, so Jacob was filling in. His email said 90 days, but our board policy says 60 days, so.
So they're moving on it. So we'll have to look at dates. I think generally the idea is kind of like what we want to do is post it, get the resumes in, and then plan a Saturday or long evening where John can keep time to do.
You know what, I'll be the timekeeper.
Yep. John's like so. John has a
Your
plan
time is
over
over.
there.
Goodbye.
Because the last thing that we did like 20-minute increments
Yeah.
or
We did. I think it was like 30-minute increments with a 10-minute.
break
Yeah.
in between.
Yeah, break in between, and when I interviewed, it was a Saturday, one night we did it, it's been a while since we've done this.
Yeah.
It has, but I have all the paperwork left from before, because I know that I went ahead and I called and made the appointments with the people and kind of gave them an option, then when I got down, this is what is available, so we could get everything
Yeah,
done.
schedule on it. I think for us, if we can lock them, depending how many we have, that will be the thing, but from a communication standpoint, what are we gonna do to communicate it? I think if you're going to do an all-call on bus bids or whatever, you could tie that one into it, so you're just not, you can.
Put that checkbook away, there's more.
Yes. Yes. Post it on social media, website, and then a firm suspense date. That's the one thing I want. I don't want, oh, I forgot to turn it in, whatever that firm suspense date is, we stick to that firm.
And I think what we did before is I had, we gave them my email address and we had there was 10 questions that you had come up with.
We'll
that you
develop,
wanted them to-
Yeah,
so I
what we'll
can
do
send
is
that to you guys.
I'll propose, I think I've got the questions from last time, that we can
Okay.
review an executive session next.
Each ask a question.
Yep, in executive session, we'll hash out those questions next month. And then probably, because we've got 60 days to try to get it filled before the school year starts. That sound
If
good?
we wait a
Planning wise?
month, is 30 days enough though?
That's what I'm saying, if you're
For
going another month before you
applications
even
and
come up with
scheduling?
those.
Well, we can start getting the applications in now.
But those
Oh, the
que-
tech questions are.
that's not the questions you were talking about,
So-
you're the ones that we were, or you
Okay.
guys were asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure out, because we'll leave it open for whatever.
Not the ones Becky sent out, those questions.
Okay.
No, at our next board meeting, we'll discuss the questions, but
It
we
was
can.
kind of like an application for the people that were interested.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
oh,
that's-
now, you're right,
That's
you're
what I
right,
was
Becky.
thinking, like, we don't
There
want those
is-
questions.
Yeah,
to
There's a
wait.
resume, and then there's a questionnaire that they filled out of why do you want to be a board member? And that helped.
Exactly.
And then we still had 5 questions that we asked in here, and you're right, it was about a 20-minute-ish
Yes.
interview, and then
Was there a resume? I don't think there's a resume.
I want to think that, I want to think that we told.
It was
them
always
that
optional.
they-
Yeah, it was optional to put a
to me
resume on
and,
there.
For the form, and
Yeah.
then I would send it to them, so they fill it out, and then I would make copies and email it to all board members so they could look at it prior to that, so. Whatever you guys want me to do.
Cause when I came in, it was during the week.
yeah, and that's the thing, it
Evening.
just depends how many people we have to interview. I've done it.
Like you all started that way.
Both times I've been on the board, I started that way.
Really?
Didn't want to do it in August, it falls within the 60.
Our normal, but I'm just thinking, us trying to interview people and on the night of a normal board meeting, that is a long night.
No.
Yeah.
Special.
Yeah, we do a special meeting.
In late July, early August.
Yeah, late July, early August, we'll we'll use the doodle and figure out use the doodle
I'll be back at work.
and figure out what, if we wanna do an evening or. do
Maybe
it-
it's two or whatever, I mean,
Yeah, like I said, I'd like to do one night if we could, just so we don't stretch it out. We have like 10, 12, it's gonna take a while.
we cut it down to 10 minutes.
Okay, your time is up, honey. We got enough information.
Be like Troy came with the district scorecard, like, you guys got progress. Who's this guy? It only took him 3 times and he finally got one. He interviewed 3 times. Danny beat him out last time.
That's saying something.
It was me, then Kim, then Dan, then Troy.
Here's Dave in for imitation. He's you like a breath of fresh air. What? We went through some interviews and I don't know, when Reese came in, he was like a breath of fresh air. He was very positive over things and some of the others, it was just like, oh wow, this will be rough. On that. So. And Troy was like, no, I'm just kidding.
First time I wasn't like, who's this guy?
I'll get that stuff set up for you guys. So
Thank
we
you,
just
Becky.
need- Okay,
Yes.
so we just need to resignate, to approve.
The resignation as, yep, as presented.
So moved.
There you go. You jumped right on that.
Okay, motion was made by Mr. Caver, second by Mrs. Lane, for the resignation of Troy Gifford, school board member. Mr. Caver?
Yes.
Mrs. Lyon?
Yep.
Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mrs. Block?
No.
That's what I was gonna.
Mrs. Copeland?
Yes.
And Mr. Pulliam.
Yes,
Motion carried.
last parting shot, huh?
I already emailed him, this is not acceptable.
But there is a conference.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about the conference. You also have that on there.
The Illinois Association of School Board Conferences, the III conference in November. Becky's got everything taken care of. Who is, and we will now, obviously, since, Casey, are you interested in going this year?
I'm going to make a concerted effort, yes. Last year it was not really doable, and then the year before sucked at life, so yes, this is the
Okay.
year.
This is your
This
This is my year.
It's my year. All right.
Can you say that date?
Wow.
16? And it counts for CB.
Let me look at my calendar.
Yes.
I think it's the 16th, I have everyone, hotel accommodations for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I kind of went through and I knew the names of the significant others, I didn't know if children were going, so as of right now, I put down your spouse's names or fiance's names or whatever the circumstance. Everyone is registered at this point in time, except for Mr. Wilford. So if something changes, or if you have other people that are to stay in the room, just let me know so I can add them, because they will give you the name tags. Other than that,
Did you get a hotel?
yeah, well, I put Hyatt in for the first one. But actually, the day, we had spoke the day before that it opened, Dr. Johnson and I did, the day it opened, we were registered, so we should have.
Choose one.
Almost as more fun as like finding out what the Fed interest rate is.
So I'm assuming we've always gotten that, so I did register you the very first day it was
We
open,
never
so.
can request the
Side.
street side.
Yeah.
It's
It's always
all
whichever
spread
rooms,
out.
whichever room has
Or
the.
even like if we were located by each other.
Hey,
Yeah,
I could.
She's not a miracle worker.
I could call, I mean, I don't have any problem doing
Whoever
that.
shows up
Like I went-
early have a 20 and that works. When you hand them your ID, it's folded behind it. The casino trick. Just saying, you got upgraded since I looked at that.
By the way,
Okay.
Carl and I did get put on a panel this year, so that'll be that'll be a good time.
So that means the overall cost for the district is going down because when we present, we go free.
What?
So what do you present?
Yeah.
How to do a superintendent search?
Search, oh, no.
We're the don't do this.
Yeah, this guy, oh my God. God, Tom was so off with this guy, I don't know how he vetted through. Then I gotta be on the hero mandate,
So
their
you do
mandate
it with the
everywhere.
other group?
You're a mandator.
Too, or?
So I'm on a panel called hero mandate, their mandate, everywhere, a mandate.
That'll be good.
Yeah, so basically from a rural school board position of like, please for the love of God, stop driving down mandates that
Yes.
we can't fund. So I get to be that guy.
Awesome.
Hopefully with Rep. Dan Swanson, that's what we're trying to aim for.
Cool.
I like it.
So, or 2 panels, can we go up one more so we can say like, give one more free?
I'll leverage that.
Yeah, I don't know, I gotta talk to Barbara, I don't know if I'm on that one for sure, but she was angling for it.
Okay.
I'll text her and ask her.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. No, that's the one for the recording. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session in accordance with 5 ILSC 120C subsection C subsection 1.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks, Tim. You bet. And the